At least 9 people were killed Thursday as a result of a crossfire between Yemeni and Israeli military forces after short-range ballistic missiles were fired at Tel Aviv. In Venezuela, the president Nicolás Maduro denounced the organization Provea of being linked to the CIA. And in the United States, the House of Republicans on Thursday rejected a bipartisan bill to avert a partial government shutdown at the request of President-elect Donald Trump. Hello and welcome to From the South. I'm Alejandra Garcia from teleSUR Studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. Stay with us. At least 9 people were killed Thursday as a result of a crossfire between Yemeni and Israeli military forces after short-range ballistic missiles were fired at Tel Aviv. Al Masira, a Houthi media channel, said that Israel, for its part, launched a series of attacks against Yemen's capital Sana'a and the city of Hodeidah, located in the Houthi-controlled region of the country. It also said that strikes on the Al Salef port had killed 9 people, while another person was injured in the strike on the oil facility. Yemeni military forces continue to attack targets in Israeli-occupied territories. The Lebanese resistance movement Hezbollah condemned the Israel regime's aggression against Yemen, which caused the death of at least 9 people. Through a communique, Hezbollah emphasized that the Israeli attack targeted civilian installations, including power plants, in violation of all international laws. Furthermore, the Lebanese resistance movement pointed out that this aggression reflects the ongoing Zionist brutality and serves as an extension of the open war against the peoples of the Arab nation, particularly Palestine, Lebanon, and Syria. In this regard, Hezbollah called on the unity of the free nations of the world and the resistance forces to confront the aggression against the people of the region. Former Palestinian prisoners denounces torture by occupation forces in Israeli prisons south of Gaza. The woman, identified as Kolod Hanoune, was held by the Israeli army during a raid on Al-Ali Baptist Hospital in southern Gaza. Hanoune confirmed the violent practices in the prisons, including constant transfers from one camp to another where they were abused, beaten, and deprived of basic rights. In this regard, the Committee for Prisoners and Ex-Prisoners Affairs, together with the Palestinian Prisoners Club, ratified the complaint of the application of torture and humiliation against the Palestinian civilians who remain under illegal Israeli custody. Meanwhile, Gazan authorities registered an Israeli massacre that leaves at least 7 civilians killed as the occupation forces continue their land incursions and bombardments against the Gaza Strip. In this context, international organizations accuse Israel of causing displacement of the civilian population in order to fulfill these expansionist plans. According to health authorities, the number of Palestinians killed exceeds 45,000, while the number of wounded totals more than 107,000 as part of the genocide being carried out by Israel against the Palestinian people. Russian armed forces launched a long-range precision-guided weapons strike against Kyiv military targets in response to the Ukrainian aggression towards a defense facility. The Russian Defense Ministry reported having hit a command center of the Ukrainian Security Service and positions of the Patriot anti-aircraft missile system. Moreover, the Russian armed forces struck the launch design bureau headquartered in Kyiv, which develops and manufactures Neptune missile systems and Olka ground-launched cruise missiles. On Thursday, the ministry announced that on December 18th, the Ukrainian army targeted a southwestern Russian company with 6 U.S.-made missiles and 4 Storm Shadow cruise missiles. And now we have a short break, but first remember you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English, where you'll find news in different formats, news updates and more. We'll be right back, stay with us. Welcome back to From the South. In Venezuela, the president, Nicolás Maduro, denounced the organization Provea of being linked to the CIA. The Venezuelan president assured that the non-governmental organization Provea has been collaborating with the U.S. Secret Service since the 1990s. Likewise, he emphasized that democratic projects will be carried out in the country, contrary to those of the Western bourgeoisie. Furthermore, President Maduro announced that in 1996 he was kidnapped and sent to prison by former dictator of Intelligence Directorate of Intelligence and Prevention, DISIP, after a director of Provea turned him in. Furthermore, he declared that peace will triumph in the country in the face of any threat.
Sale Provea, que no es Provea, es Procía.
Provea comes out, which is not Provea, but Procía, because Provea has been working for the CIA since the 1990s. A director of Provea, back then, handed me over to the DISIP, set up a trap for me, and they caught me at the gates of El Conde Hotel. I haven't told you about that yet. Someday I will. Since the time they took me prisoner in 1996, when they kidnapped me on the streets, Provea was already working with the CIA. Then they come out to say that they are political prisoners. They are not political prisoners. They are people who burned, who attacked, who threatened, who assaulted, who destroyed and killed. They try to terrorize Kibor, but nobody terrorizes Kibor or Venezuela. Neither terror nor fascism won. Peace and life did.
In Argentina, the government authorized this Thursday 2 of its officials to request support from the armed forces in places they consider a strategic value for the state. The executive power authorized the ministers of Defense, Luis Petri, and of Security, Patricia Bullrich, to request support from military personnel or from provincial police forces and from the city of Buenos Aires in situations of internal commotion. The decree calls into question the defense law since it does not clearly or explicitly define what a strategic value objective is. Therefore, it gives national officials the power to define or redefine this concept. Also in Argentina, the National Institute of Statistics and Census reports that unemployment affected 6.9% of the population living in metropolitan areas in the third quarter of this year. This data shows an increase of 1.2% in relation to the same quarter of the previous year. Similarly, the data shows that the number of unemployed rose from 814,000 to 994,000 in just 1 year in the 31 metropolitan areas analyzed. Taking into account the entire population of Argentina, this means that almost 1.6 million people are looking for work and are unable to find it, whereas a year ago this phenomenon affected just under 1.3 million people. In Argentina, this December 20th marks 23 years of the fall of the government of La Alianza led by Fernando de la Rúa, who left the Casa Rosada in a helicopter after 2 years in office. In the midst of economic, political and social collapse, the government of Fernando de la Rúa was faced with a social outburst of unprecedented proportions, which was repressed under a state siege, leaving 38 dead, hundreds injured and 4,000 people arrested. 23 years after the so-called Argentinazo, as each year an event in Plaza de Mayo will take place. The march will be in defense of public health and education, for wages, retirement and pensions, for the right to protest and for all the living conditions and democratic rights, as well as to overthrow the base law of Javier Milei. In the United States, the House of the Republicans on Thursday rejected a bipartisan bill to avert a partial government shutdown at the request of President-elect Donald Trump. Trump urged Republicans in Congress to instead pass a legislation that would increase the government's debt authority while expressing support for raising the debt ceiling. If Congress fails to reach a funding deal, a government shutdown could begin next Saturday. According to local media, Trump was not in favor of the Republican Party approving the bipartisan budget bill because it included billions of dollars in spending. Also in the United States, Luigi Maggione was indicted on 4 federal charges for the murder of Chief Executive Officer of the United Healthcare Insurance Company, Brian Thompson. The defendant was flown from Pennsylvania to the state of New York, where he was presented in court for the prosecution to bring the federal indictment. The prosecution alleged that Maggione traveled from Georgia to New York on November 24th with the intent to harass, intimidate, and kill Thompson, which he accomplished on December 4th using a firearm. Likewise, some passages of the notebook seized from the defendant were disclosed in which he expresses hostility towards the health insurance industry and wealthy executives in particular. In the United States, 2 workers were killed and 3 people were injured when a freight train collided with a trailer in a town in the south of Texas. The accident took place at 5 in the afternoon following a collision between the train and the vehicle, which was stopped at the crossing in the town of Pecos. Local police chief Lisa Tarango said the crash caused 3 cars carrying hazardous materials to derail, but there were no chemical leaks. One of the injured was taken to the Odessa hospital in critical condition, while the 2 others were taken away with minor injuries. We have a second short break coming up, but first we invite you to visit our YouTube channel at teleSUR English. There you'll be able to rewatch our interviews, top stories, special broadcastings, and more. Hit the subscribe button and activate the notification bell to stay up to date on the world's most recent events. Find a short break, don't go away. Welcome back to From the South. In Haiti, a new state of emergency was declared after the Council of Ministers imposed it, citing growing insecurity and violence in the country. This will take place from next Sunday in a context of massacres by armed gangs against the civilian population. The reason given was to facilitate the various interventions of the Haitian National Police in the fight against insecurity and to address the agricultural and food crisis in the country. The one-month state of emergency will last from December 22nd, 2024 to January 21st, 2025. A lawmaker who was murdered in Antigua and Barbuda last month was buried on Thursday following an official funeral. 54-year-old Asad Michael was fatally stabbed at his home on November 5th, the first time in the country's history that a legislator met such an untimely demise. The crime's defendant is now before the court. Patrice Martin of the Antigua and Barbuda Broadcasting Services reports on the tributes at the funeral.
Today, we come together to celebrate the extraordinary life and enduring legacy of the Honorable Asad Anthony Michael. While the weight of his loss is immeasurable, we stand united in gratitude for a life lived with purpose, passion, and an unyielding commitment to the people of Antigua and Barbuda.
Sister of the late MP Teresa Ann Michael delivered the eulogy at the official funeral at the Holy Family Cathedral. Though a somber gathering, it was also a celebration for the man who touched many lives throughout his over 2 decades of public service. A large number of people turned out to pay their final respects, one of whom was family friend Dr. Leon Errol Court.
His passion for service was fueled by a deep love for his country. Through his tireless efforts and immeasurable philanthropic contributions, he left an indelible mark on the lives he touched.
Former Member of Parliament for St. Philip's South, Lennox Weston, reflected on the life and service of his student at Sunnyside Primary, who would later become his political comrade.
Assad succeeded in leaving major footprints and a political legacy that will influence politics for a long time.
According to Weston, Michael's priority remained the people of the St. Peter constituency. Weston said he possessed a competitive nature, one he used to his advantage during campaigning and election seasons. Niece of the former MP, Marissa Michael, an aspiring surgeon, attributes her dedication and calling to the teachings of her uncle. She echoed some of his advice that remains etched in her memory.
Uncle Asad ensured I understood the value of service and respect. Though a silver spoon may have been on my place setting, I learned to serve with it, whether fetching drinks for guests or helping with hors d'oeuvres. These lessons of hospitality and humility have shaped both my personal and professional journey. I return to the question of who am I? One that has become even more poignant as I interview for a surgical residency. When I get asked what makes me unique, I say 2 things: my ability to connect with people from all backgrounds, and my unwavering dedication to achieving my goals. These traits are both a direct reflection of Uncle Asad's influence, and to some extent, common personality traits we share.
There was a viewing of the late MP's body at his home in Dry Hill early Thursday morning, the location where he met his untimely death on November 5, 2024. Following the funeral service, there was a procession to the St. John's Public Cemetery for interment. Several onlookers gathered along the sides of the road as the cortege passed. At the cemetery, a gun salute and presentation of the flag from the coffin were part of the solemnity of the occasion. Wreaths were laid by officials and members of the family.
The outburst of a riot in the Social Reintegration Center of Southeastern Tabasco, Mexico, claimed at least 7 inmates' lives and then injured, including 4 officers. Violence and crossfire began at 5 a.m. on Thursday morning when security officers entered the center to transfer 2 prison leaders. In this context, the State Public Prosecutor's Office opened a file to clarify the incident. In addition to the Tabasco riot, revolts have been staged in several localities of the state capital, Villahermosa, where around 10 vehicles were burned down. This December 20th marks 35 years of the U.S. invasion of Panama to capture General Manuel Antonio Noriega. 35 years ago, Panama was a laboratory for the most advanced warfare technology designed by the United States. The so-called Just Cause operation had the objective of capturing Manuel Antonio Noriega. As a result, this brought death, especially in poor neighborhoods. In addition to human losses, the aggression left thousands of people homeless. The U.S. troops made no effort to limit themselves to military targets and avoid damage to the lives and property of the civilian population. In Cuba, authorities reiterated on Thursday the call for a popular march in front of the U.S. Embassy to be held on Friday, December 20th, against the blockade. The march, called by the plenary session of the Central Committee of the Communist Party, will take place at the end of the session of the National Assembly of People's Power, with the aim of expressing in front of the U.S. Embassy in Havana the condemnation of the economic, commercial and financial blockade imposed by Washington and the permanence of Cuba in the illegitimate list of countries allegedly supporting terrorism. And we have come to the end of this news brief, but remember you can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net and join us, of course, on social media. We are on Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram and TikTok as well. For TeleSUR English, I'm Alejandra Garcia. Thank you for watching.